geographies, and people have written about this a lot. 3 geographies. This is our lab, by the way, all the different things we've been doing, 3D games and textbooks and things like that, fact sheets. Even at one point I started posting academic research, and the dean said, Phil, you're stopped publishing in academic journals. What happened? We're gonna cut your salary, And then I showed them all the academic research we've done that's on Google Scholar, and I had more citations for my invented research as opposed to my real research. Here's the dilemma. The internet is heavily biased towards 3 geographies: California, New York, and London. You'll go to Wikipedia, for example. You type in Half Moon Bay, not too far from here, there's an article. Why not all the bays of Indonesia or India? Why don't they get articles, right? You'll type in a restaurant that Woody Allen might have gone to. That restaurant gets a page. Well, why not every restaurant in the planet? Shouldn't they get a page? And then you'll type in something like an obscure song in the 1960s, Let It Be. It gets a page. Well, what about every song from every country, from every artist anywhere worldwide? Why shouldn't there be something about everything, no matter what it is, and make sure that no language is left behind? This is the long tail problem. Some languages have a heck of a lot of content. English, for example. The French are missing about 70% of the content that's available to English people. So if you type in something in French, you actually aren't exposed to a lot of content. If you go to Swahili, you end up getting, 98%, etc. So imagine someone who speaks Kikuyu who types in lump in breast in the internet. No results found. So then they go to the national language, Swahili. No results found. Then they type in lump in breast in English, if they know that language, right? And they get what? Something about the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. Nothing relevant to them where they're standing in their village. So we call that the content divide. And even in English, you'll notice that a lot of it is little stubs. Only like 1 or 2 lines, and I'll show you that in a minute. So here's the gambit. Here was the idea 5 years ago. We basically said, it's not about translating what's in the English because some of it is largely irrelevant, right? But you might as well. Why not translate in English across all these languages, but actually boost the content beyond what's in English? Full disclosure, your generation will call this synthetic data, or something like that. There's been 2 large language model companies that are actually sourcing their content from my lab. And I'll show you an example of that. But the reality is, if it's not curated, if it's not with provenance, and it's not replicable, it's nonsense. Or it's at least dangerous if it's not nonsense, right? So that's where we work on. This is an MBA P2 question for you alumni. What is this thing? Okay, the answer is it's a bear climbing a tree. You don't see the bear, you only see the paws of the bear, right? This is the internet of today. You type something in, you go to GPT, it tells you what it thinks you want to see, right? It gives you good high customer satisfaction that way. What if you type in bass, B-A-S-S? Is that a fish, or is it a guitar? Or is it a model of diffusion? What is this thing? The only way to know the truth is to let people walk around the tree. That's giving people the power of the hyperparameter, letting them play with the content engine directly, right? And then you can understand what something is from any dimensionality that you choose. Now this allows us to have a couple of advantages. In normal publishing, often a boss will tell the employees, follow these rules. In Wikipedia, for example, as a straw man, it'll say things like use reputable publishers like the New York Times. Now, that's problematic at 2 levels. Many people don't think the New York Times is reputable in some subject areas. That's a problem. But more importantly, most cultures don't have a New York Times. It just doesn't exist. So are they not going to be able to do any content creation because there's nothing reputable in their language, right? That's a problem. The second is notability. There are massive fights going on the internet about what's important in life, right? People literally decide this thing. One of our curators, we have hundreds of curators, freelance linguists, people like that. One of them, a physicist from CERN, said people are deleting articles about physics on Wikipedia because they argue with each other about what's notable or not, right? With algorithms, you can remove that constraint and let the data do the talking, and I'll give you a demo of that. On the blue is the value chain of content creation. Upstream, you'll notice the data are semi-structured, unstructured, or simply missing. They don't exist. A content engine creates data in the non-internet space, so to speak, right? Below that, humans create the rules. That's like an editor of a newspaper. And below the editor of the newspaper is a journalist who follows those rules and a reader reads it. So our lab has been focusing on those first 3 blue boxes, fully automating the entire industry. This market research company that publishes these things has no employees. It's literally a box in a closet, automatically distributing this stuff, and it just shows up on Amazon. And then we get a royalty check, thank goodness. You know? So the idea is a zero employee option. You've heard about Tencent making that a big challenge internally, right? To Tencent, so saying, hey, let's have the zero employee company ideas, pitch it to us, right? So this concept is rather old. So we have automated the entire first 3 blue boxes, but we add one human element at the end. We will not allow pornographic material into the system. We wanted to make it safe for children. Your 6-year-old daughter should be able to go in there and there should be no contentious issue, right? So we just want to make sure it's safe for people, right? And so here's kind of the contrast. Whereas Wikipedia has about, in English language, has about 7 million articles in English, right? Something like that. My last name, because it's Anglo-Saxon, Parker, has a Wikipedia page. I bet half of the names in this room do not have a Wikipedia page for your last name, right? Some YouTubers get a Wikipedia page. Well, why not every YouTuber? Some researchers get a page. Why not every researcher? Chemicals, places, billions of things, right? Billions. So why not everything, everywhere, everybody, and just make sure everyone can read about it in no matter whatever language they happen to type in? That was the gambit and the idea. If we have time, if there's a question, I can always talk about the methodology. Some people say, well, how's it done, etc. There's a really ugly graph that I have. This, in case people are wondering, this is the methodology. This right here is called ChatGPT, right there. That thing right there in the corner. If you're doing geospatial stuff, do not use a large language model. Okay, that's not a good, so everything is purpose-built. Let's do a little demo, and then I'll stop yakking. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna simulate, I haven't done this yet, I hope this, fingers crossed. I typed in a large number like that, right? Just ugly, right? That's like you just typed in Kikuyu. Here's what the internet has. No results found. That's an underserved segment. There's no results. About 3.5 billion people, this is what they get on the internet out there. There's just nothing there. Or it's wrong, because something will guess what it is, which is even worse, right? So this is the problem, that's the content divide. Why is that true? Because upstream in the value chain of content, you have Wikipedia as a source. There's many others, but it's one of them. If I copy that in, there's no results found. Therefore, there's nothing for OpenAI or anyone else to scrape. There's no knowledge, it's just a blank hole, it's the unknown universe, right? However, if you type in a more innocuous number like 66, there's a page. There are literally human beings that wrote this thing. So some numbers get respect and others don't. 66 is a good number. And it's in 76 languages, that article. If I look at the Malaysian version of that number, it turns out it's only one line. 66 is a number between 65 and 67. Clearly a computer can write that, yeah? Okay. If I add a digit to this, sorry, I'm going into the weeds here. If I add a digit, you're gonna notice there's a footnote here that an academic has a citation. And starting in around 2015 or so, I noticed that a lot of academics were pummeling into Wikipedia and getting their citations, you know, referencing themselves in articles and the like. Is that the best footnote? Is it a good footnote? Etc. If I type in something common, of course there's a page. But if I type in something related to chemistry or agriculture, processing, there's no page. Some verbs get respect, other verbs don't, for some reason. If I'm interested in history, and I want to know about conservation policy, which is a pretty big area, of course, each country has their own history going back in time, there's no page on conservation policy. It forwards to the EPA Act in 1970 in the United States. Again, Anglo-Saxon oriented. If I type in something much more broadly related to this audience, human problem solving, especially if we want to have algorithms that mimic humans, there's only one line, a book by Herbert Simon. It's a good book, but that's all there is. Clearly, there's more content. Okay, there's gotta be something out there. So Botipedia, if you guys, after I'm over, don't hit it right now. Don't wanna get bombarded here. If you put in your INSEAD email address, I'm giving you access to this thing, okay? So now your INSEAD email is more than just for spam, okay? For a spam, okay? Put in your INSEAD email address. Or a corporate address. No Gmail, we can't handle public yet, so we already let academics do it, but we can't open it to public. I'm gonna copy and paste that word, that number there. Again, no GPU, there's no GPU here. We made the technology so that it would be useful to people even in Africa, and now it's just generating a page on the fly. There's no cache, it's not memory or whatever, it's generating a thing on this page. Again, train, test, vet. The person who vetted this page is a mathematician at CERN in physics, right? He said, if you're gonna talk about any number, start with number theory, and then de-diagnose what that number's all about. As I scroll down, it tells you if it's a prime number, non-prime number, what are its divisors, what's its Bernoulli transformation in real time, because some things are real time. The exchange rate might change from place to place, et cetera, and you just wanna make sure conversion rates should not change. Should never change. That should always be the same. So you don't want a large language model giving you conversions of units, or you get hallucinations and strange stuff. Because the computer has no idea what it's doing, I simply click on Amharic, and you get this version of Amharic. Now, as you guys know, many languages do not have a word for integer. It just doesn't exist. The vocabulary hasn't been enriched yet enough for that. So this is where you have a linguist follow neural machine translation. So neural machine translation is quite useful. Use it, but then send it to a freelancer who then polishes it, rewrites it. It has to pass their smell test. Then you have another linguist tell you if it's proper or not, because you never know if people are doing a good job. Does that make sense? So it's a pipeline of sorts. But once that linguist has told us their knowledge, we can scale to 1 billion pieces of information. If you remember from your MBA, a Bayesian prior is worth billions of degrees of freedom statistically. One notion, right? If you cut the head off of a polar bear, will it die? Yeah. You cut the head off of a lizard, will it die? How many of you have seen a YouTube about a polar bear being decapitated? But you know it's true. And you've never read it either. And you've certainly never seen it on YouTube, right? So human knowledge is billions of degrees of freedom. So if we can model knowledge, then I don't have to have a language model, because I actually have the source of where it comes from. So when we do weather forecasting, we don't scrape the internet for weather and stuff. No. You get the original satellite data, you meet with the world's top meteorologist and say, how do you do kriging to do estimates down to a village level? Do you mind if I model you? You always have to ask permission from these experts. Can I model the way you do your job? And they say, yeah, that'd be cool. Let's see what happens. And then you model it. Once it's modeled, now you have weather forecasting. A number comes in, Beaufort Index 7. That's meaningless. But it means you should hide your chickens because they're going to get killed in the next rainstorm. And then you make sure that's available in Swahili or whatever language. So this example I'm showing you looks fairly static, and it should be. It should be replicable. I do not want to have a number show up, or a template or an output shows up that is different when you expect it to be the same. I type in a low order integer and it looks kind of the same. The results are not the same, right? The partitions are different for that number, the divisors are different. And what it's gonna do, it's gonna look up the footnotes. Now, I'm not so interested in this, but mathematicians went gaga over this. These are equations that intersected space on that number. Do you remember the lonely academic who had the footnote for 636? Well, these are the footnotes that should be on that page. For most people, who cares? Doesn't really matter. But for people in the field, that kind of matters. So now you've got hundreds of billions of pages alone just doing numbers. If I type in something a bit more, let's say general audience, like peeling, you end up getting the work of a research assistant for 3 months, but in 30 seconds. What is it doing? For you guys who have been in IT a lot, you have Salesforce and Oracle and SAP and all these legacy systems all together. This is a knowledge silo buster. It goes across all possible things and just says, if I had 30 seconds to come up with a summary of everything known to man on this subject, what would that be? It starts with disambiguation. And then one of our curators, one of the people who helped us think about this, his name is Larry Sanger. He was the co-founder of Wikipedia. He said every Wikipedia article starts with definitions, right? So let's start with some definitions. Then existing encyclopedias. Why do I have that? because that's the way encyclopaedias work. I don't know if you knew that, but there was Diderot in France. The Grand Diderot, knowledge, universal knowledge. Britannica was a copy of that. And then Funkin' Wagnalls was a copy of Britannica, and everybody copies each other. It's incredible. Well, don't write an article about a subject without knowing what other people have already written, right? So, in addition to that, you actually want to what? Find out the knowledge about that. Do you remember the star systems for plants? Our lab created 5,000 ways of evaluating content. Saltiness, whatever, doesn't matter, about 5,000 of them. One of them is didacticness. What's the degree to which something teaches you something? Rather than have an LLM kind of guess what the answer to the question is, why not just give the answer that a human actually said? Then I don't have to worry about hallucination. And it has provenance. There's the people who said it. This one scored the highest on didacticness. What is peeling? This is what peeling is. Here's the second one. The third, this is a chemical process, etc. You'll notice on the side here, disambiguation, many different angles associated with this subject. Here's expressions related to peeling. Remember, Wikipedia had no article on peeling. This is not a list that we gave the computer. The computer discovered these types of peelings. And from those, I can click on it and get any article I want. Many people, and now I'm gonna just go quick here. Notice the cursor is way here at the top. As I scroll down, you can see how long this is. This is overkill, do you agree? But hey, if you wanna know about peeling, just keep going, right? So here's expressions of peeling, here's advice about peeling across different subject domains. Here is applications of peeling, a thesaurus of poetry on peeling, quotations on peeling, songs about peeling, videos, images, its use in mathematics, in the Human Genome Project, in chemistry, it just keeps going, blah, 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 blah. Everything you can imagine, and then you can hit read more at the end, and it just keeps going crazy, right? People say, where does this come from? I'm gonna do kind of a fun thing. I like to go for God's truth. So what is the truth about Donald Trump, right? Okay, what's the truth about Donald Trump? You hit the answer, and it should come up with something reasonable, right? You would hope, right? Okay, so let's see if it's gonna kick in, there we go. Well, there's more than one person named Donald Trump. This is Donald Trump about Donald Trump. It's the primary source. Primary sources aren't allowed on some websites. They don't want that. That's considered propaganda. Well, that'd be true if that's all I showed, right? And if I want to know, hey, I wonder what this Donald Trump thing is about in, I don't know, Amharic, right? So here's the Donald Trump in Amharic, so every language can learn about this Donald Trump guy. Then you have his son, who also has the same name, that's him. But then we go here. These are encyclopedic sources about Donald Trump. And of course you have Wikipedia over here, but you also have Ballotpedia, you have Conservapedia, you have Encarta, you have all the different encyclopedic perspectives. You can walk around the tree. Many people don't know Conservapedia exists, for example. Well, I wonder what they have to say about this guy. And then if I happen to not speak that language, let's just pick, I don't know, simplified Chinese, I can actually get a hold of what it was in that language. Maybe I want it in stacked format, or I want it in parallel format. And many people will ask so I can find out. So every piece of encyclopedia going back in time, even down to the year 1771, Britannica, first edition, we put in here. Even though it's out of date, who cares? The person knows it's 1771. Benjamin Franklin, for those aficionados, wrote the paragraphs on electricity, and he said it was a fluid you can't drink. That's interesting. It's a perspective. Might as well include it in there and let everyone on the planet be able to read about Benjamin Franklin's article, right? But where does it really come from? What's going on here? What's happening here? If I'm going to make it simpler. I type in the word Trump to make it easy here. And now it's the name Trump, right, as opposed to English. I'm going to hit news. People say, where does it come from? So we decided to put the source material on the bar at the top. So these are news articles from mainstream news outlets, left or right. Front pages instantly, they're talking about Trump. Our alternative news outlets, Substack people, videos that have just arrived. This is in real time, updating all the time. So it's a complete competitive, going back even to the 1700s news articles that happen to have the word Trump in it. Then you say, well, that's interesting. Now I can understand what's current events, thing to be updated. What about definitions of this Trump thing? So it gives you definitions, and I want to see that in different languages, of course, so I can do that. and look at different definitions, etc. I want to see idioms. A lot of idiomatic stuff is very complicated. I want to see it in that language, etc. I want it in Armenian, and I want to, so now I have a Rosetta Stone for every idiomatic expression ever given. Was some of those embarrassing? You're pointing at the thing. There's a thesaurus. Only a computer program could do this. So this is a thesaurus for the word Trump. As you know, to trump something is a verb, right? Or it's a noun, depending. And I want to see this in various other languages. Here, let's go for Danish. So now you have a Danish-English thesaurus. That's never existed before. There's maybe geographies, every known place on the map that has the word Trump. So there's 305 in the United States. There's one in Slovenia, one, etc. Every known place in the world. Every person that might have the name Trump, and there's a lot of those out there. So notable people, entertainers, researchers, journalists, musicians, inventors, executives, voters, US residents, veterans, deceased people, genealogy, slaves, YouTubers, etc., etc., etc. And it goes on from there. Every single kind of concept you could think of, every known company that exists out there. Even every translation across, we have 1,500 languages. It took us 20 years to have people type in dictionaries from around the world that are only in paper format. So these are the example of the languages, including a very strange, for those of you who are into French linguistics, we decided to invest heavily in what are called the patois of France. So there's all the patois of France, all these little towns, including Bourguignon and a bunch of other cool languages out there, just going crazy on every possible language, right? Each one of these tabs actually is more complete than any other compendium that exists. Could not have happened without algorithms. Just could not have happened. So the idea was to create something like this and then make sure that every segment in society was served by it. So a few examples. I'm going to type in, let's see if this works. I don't want to be a translation. Let me go to Botipedia. Botipedia is kind of an aggregate of all these tabs and things, right? Let me go here and type in Thunderstruck. I'm dating myself. What are all the songs related to Thunderstruck, right? And then, is that person using my intellectual property? That's a natural question. I want to click on the music score and then maybe listen if that is, in fact, my song. And if it is, okay, there might be a digital rights management issue they might have to face. On another dimension, our historian was very avid about this. This took us about 3.5 years to do. This is, you know how the US Library of Congress has the Chronicles of American History in photographs, right? Going back to 1850s or so. Every government has that, Japan, India, all over the world. Unfortunately, it's not scrapable directly. You can't scrape it from there. You have to ping their servers, and not too aggressively, and then extract the photography from the local languages. Once we had that, we harmonized the data, so now you can type in something and see the same concept, but in image format. That's another dimension on the tree, right? Walk in. So I typed in the word supermarine, so it was the first public photo we found, it was 1928. Then when World War II broke out, of course it was the famous Supermarine Spitfire of World War II, and it's every single photo that takes place that way. In addition to that, as you know, I'm going to embarrass you a little here if you don't mind. Most low literacy environment cultures can always type 3 things: a number, the town they're from, or their name. So right now we have about 1.6 billion people in Botipedia. We're still loading, by the way, out of 1.6 billion. But what if someone types in their name? Can I learn about a name from the point of view of just linguistics? So yes, Lily Parker can be the name of one or more individuals, fictional, deceased, living, or yet to be born. And here's the density function of that name, right? Lily Parker, probably a female, etc. Probably heterosexual. Probably, let's see where the gene pool came out of, Europe to the UK with a little Viking invasion, and there's where the name distribution is likely to exist. All generated, basically. And the reason I want to emphasize this generation thing, I'm going to pivot now back to my PowerPoint thing here, is that often, if you don't have curated data with provenance, you end up getting a very strange thing that occurs. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Just a second here. Yeah, I think it's right here. This is a semi-structured database, right? It's just a line of data. Your typical company has these lines in Oracle, SAP, whatever, right? That line, using NLG, no GPU, GPUs won't help in this, is converted to this. That's what that line means, using NLG. That's what it means. And there are hundreds of thousands of millions of people like this that are just undocumented, right? Just hidden in a database. Hidden knowledge, right? In 2024, we asked OpenAI, not to pick on them, good folks, tell me something about Tinworld. And they'll say Tinworld is a fictional substance with no real world basis. It does not exist in reality, therefore it has no known properties. As a result, I'm not able to write something about Tinworld. There's no reliable, verifiable information, right? That's interesting, except for this person did exist, right? It's a real person, right? Botipedia, for example, because it is relying on vetted, curated, and replicable sources, we decided to post it just to see what would happen. And here's the good news. We asked OpenAI just a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago, who is this Tinworld? And now we have the Tinworld. It's an African-American man who was enslaved aboard the Spanish schooner NS de Montserrat in 1818, according to historical records, etc. So this is good news. In other words, data that can be vetted and have provenance. The information is derived from a data set from Google approximately a decade ago. That's a hallucination. It was only a little while ago. And was retrieved using TotoGeo, a rule-based AI system. That's not actually true. There's more than rules, right? We use statistical methods too. The lab focused on extractable, verifiable, historical, factual, structured data sources. That's close enough. It's important to note that some ISIs like ChatGPT may classify Tinworld as fictional term. Now it's a bit more humble because there's more data. It actually relative, etc. So I see this as a very good thing. This AI hitting that long tail of languages that are underserved, topics that are underserved, people that are underserved, etc. And there is so much data available now, and so many people who haven't been able to self-educate. We've taken all of the open curriculum of everything, math, science, etc., and now it's in about 130 odd languages right now, and will be in 300 languages by January. So this is not the full public opening of Botipedia. This is just for you guys and for the previous alumni. If you have comments about it, feed it back to me. Just as a last statement, over the years I've had a chance to interact with many of you for the last 25, 30 years or so. I've been at INSEAD 37 years now. And I was so surprised. I sat down and I saw Links Analytics as a, did you guys say the logo last night, Links Analytics? That's my doctoral student who founded that company. There's other students. I've had maybe 3 or 4 spin-offs from different people out there. And one of our next speakers is one of those people. A young student who sat through one of our classes and came up with this idea of most small firms cannot afford McKinsey & Company. So what can you do to create reasonably good content serving that underserved segment? So that's my segue to the next speaker. Is that okay? All right, I got a thumbs up.